Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to do our monthly ASIC pricing update video. This is going to be the pre-halving edition. So this is for April 2024. Today is the 18th. This is about a day before the halving. So I am going to do two this month. I did want to do one right before the halving, and I want to do another one pretty much right at the end of this month, just to see how the market digests the halving, right? To see how it affects these prices. So this one is going to be a little more extensive than some of the others. We're going to go through the more popular ones as well as all the popular Bitcoin ones towards the end here, right? So I'm going to talk about the different price points and kind of where I see things going, because again, this is a big catalyst. This is the halving. A lot of things are going to be changing here, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So the halving is literally in about a freaking day, which is crazy because this is something we have been talking about, we have been anticipating for what seems like forever, but now that it's here, it seems like it's almost happening too fast, right? Almost starting to feel like, oh, time's running out, like I gotta do something. And in reality, it kind of is, right? So this is a big part of why I follow these prices so closely. It's just what I'm looking at, right? It's from my perspective as a small at-home miner. So right now, realistically, time is running out for ASIC prices to be reasonable. Okay, there still will be options here and there, but realistically, we're already seeing it. Chances are a lot of these newer ASICs that I've kind of been waiting for are probably going to be well out of range already. Okay, so just like with the L9 coming out, chances are the thing is going to be high tens, maybe mid teens, right? Anywhere from like 12, 15K. We'll actually talk about price points there. There are already a lot of price points out there, and the consensus seems to be in the same. And this is probably, again, going to be for the majority of new ASICs, right? It's already getting to that point where some of the things are going to be unattainable. Okay, so as far as like getting decent prices, time is definitely running out. Now, whether it's like a month or two or whether it's 5-6 months, we don't know. But realistically, we know that when it does happen, chances are it's just going to pass us by, right? So when we look at these prices, consider things, guys, right? Right now, we did get a lot of news recently with things that we have kind of been speculating on. They're finally coming to fruition, and we'll talk about that here in a second as well, okay? So let's just look at the overall market real quick, and things have been extremely volatile, especially this past week. A lot of stuff going on with that conflict in the Middle East, so that has definitely affected prices, but the fact that the halving is also coming is definitely affecting prices as well, right? There's a lot of things going on, a lot of battles between the bulls and the bears, manipulators, big investment firms coming in. We all know the ETF action going on here locally, but we do know it's happening abroad. It's happening in China as well, which there's been a lot of speculation. Well, the market's not that big. To me, it's bigger than that. It's kind of what can happen after that, right? China, Hong Kong is one of the biggest hubs in Asia. Guess what's also going to happen next? Once they officially shine that beacon, which they have, they did approve their ETFs already. Guess what else is going to happen? These other big Asian countries are also going to start doing theirs. We're going to see probably South Korea, Singapore, Japan, everybody else jump on board, and the culmination of that is where the catalyst is going to be, right? It's just going to increase demand. Very similar to when we saw when BlackRock announced their ETF. What happened shortly after? Everybody else are like, oh crap, now we got to jump in. Gonna kind of be the same thing, and not even just in the Asia region, worldwide, globally. It's going to just continue, going to just escalate. Demand's gonna be there, so it's gonna be kind of nuts, bros. But in the short term, what's gonna happen? A lot of people have been asking, oh, what's gonna be your predictions and all this? It's a coin toss, bros. Like realistically, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised if within a few weeks the market, because of everything going on, we skyrocket. I also wouldn't be surprised if we dump massively. If not necessarily massively, let me retrace that a little bit. Maybe we go down into the high 50s, mid 50s, maybe low 50s, maybe high 40s, right? Realistically, that's not necessarily what I want. Actually, it kind of is. Because I want cheaper Bitcoin, I want cheaper altcoins, I want cheaper hardware. So throughout the year, I'm sure some of you guys get the hint now, is that when things get really bullish, it's nice to see these numbers go up, especially on these ASICs, you know, like the K7s, the K3s, like, oh man, profitability is looking so good. But the reason I've been like, oh, I don't want to see that yet is because what happens? That's when everybody wants to FOMO in. That's when everybody wants to jump in. They don't want to jump in when it's boring and the yield is great, right? It's taking a very similar approach to what I've been doing with like GPU mining, where like yield is king. That strategy has paid off extremely well with ASIC mining, and that's kind of definitely 100% going to be the way I look at things for the most part when it's opportune, right? Right now, things are definitely changing. We're getting in that greed phase now. A lot of these manufacturers are going to start releasing more hardware. Why? Because they're able to increase the prices, and it's only going to exaggerate as time goes on. So yes, we're having these new releases now, but wait for once the price action really starts, and then we're going to see a flood of new hardware releases. Okay? So just keep all these things in mind as we go through. So again, ultimately price-wise, who freaking knows? The only one I'd be concerned with is if we do have more dips, because then at that point, I will take more action, right? If we kind of stay in the range we're at or kind of go up, it's nice to see the number go up, but I'm not necessarily going to do anything to capitalize on it. But if we go down, which is kind of what I want, then yes, I will be buying more dips, because this recent dip that happened, I did buy a good chunk, okay? So again, the reason we focus on these prices, specifically Bitcoin, is because it affects the entire market and it affects the prices of these ASICs greatly. So even if you're not into BTC mining, you're specifically here for the altcoin ASICs, this definitely 100% affects you, and you need to be paying attention to the broader market and Bitcoin, right? So let's get to some of these prices. Let's go through profitability, which has been kind of all over the place, just because, again, that extreme volatility. Bitcoin dropping, 15, 20% greatly affects altcoins, to the point where some are dropping 20, 30, 40, 50%, which is going to greatly affect the fiat profitability, which is why when I do these things and when we focus on like numbers, focus on the yield. Again, that's why we mention a lot of times that don't focus too much or don't get too like stuck on the fiat value, the fiat profitability, because that can fluctuate with the market, right? What doesn't necessarily fluctuate a ton is your yield. Okay, that's where the focus needs to be, and especially because of this, right? Literally, one day to the next, it can drop massively, but are you still getting the same amount of coin? Yes. Okay, so just factor those things in, and why we see the importance of focusing on yield. Okay, like today is a great example. These things have been all over the freaking place, and recently some of them have dropped pretty substantially, right? We'll go over those here in a second. So as we look, the biggest change, right, especially in the top, is the fact that we have the new addition of that AL box, right? It's kind of disrupting the long standing of all the freaking Caspa miners kind of taking over. Okay, and it is something that's going to continue to shift in these next 3 to 6 months. It's going to be ALF miners. It's going to be Radiant miners. It's going to change. It's kind of a benefit if you are a Caspa ASIC miner, because then what's going to happen? Chances are people are going to start FOMOing into those miners instead of more of the Caspa ASICs, and maybe the hash rate won't go up as immensely as it has been going. It's still going to go up, obviously, because the prices are going to adjust, but maybe it's not as fast of an update or as fast of an upgrade. Maybe it slows down, kind of tempers down, giving us more longevity with those ASICs, right? So think of those benefits. The other thing you're going to want to focus on is, because all the hype is going to be on those, everyone's going to be talking about the lithium, the potential Radiant, the L9, all of that stuff might be opportunity for some of these other ASICs that are kind of gonna get ignored potentially. Maybe the prices go down. Those are the types of things you want to look at, right? So overall, the biggest drops have been the Kadena miner. So the KA3, I did notice, did go down immensely. And we'll cover that one here more in a minute as we get to it, because I do have a little whole thing on it. Down to $1.35 a day. Okay, so again, we'll talk about that one, but again, profitability in general still looking pretty good on a lot of these newer ASICs. Okay, so that's the general consensus. As I kind of go through them, I'll kind of give commentary on them. So let's get started with some of the new guys. So this guy already is seeing a price drop. It is that Gold Shell AL box. The reason being is that there's now more like kind of official dates, right? The initial 15, 16K price was like a spot price. There was that small batch. As we've seen now, we saw with RPM, They are out in the wild. People are getting them shipped. They are coming in hand. But again, it's an extremely small batch. These other batches are going kind of farther out. Gold Chill is still being shady and still hasn't officially listed them on their website. They did this thing where they sold an allocation to their partners so their partners can scalp them with their guidance, I guess you can say. And they've been quiet. They haven't announced. They haven't given like a MSRP. We'll see what ends up happening there. But realistically, this is one that's zero interest in. We know that Bitmain is very likely to release there soon, as well as the flood of the others. The interest may lie in with the bigger units as those come out. We'll see, but again, chances are those prices are going to be extreme. Not even just like high, oh, like 15, 20K. They're probably going to be on the pretty extreme side, right? So that doesn't mean like, oh, alpha mining, definitely. It's going to be very similar to Caspa, where maybe early on I'm not interested, but maybe farther down the road as the profitability goes down. Because again, it's going to go down massively. Like, yes, when we do the little calculator with this guy, it is looking pretty good. But again, especially as these bigger units come online, it's going to change drastically. Okay, so got to keep my eyes on it. Definitely will be interested when these other manufacturers come out with theirs. But chances are it's going to be well out of my price range, right? If this is any indication of what's going to happen. Because again, people still freaking bought these things at those prices, right? Insane. But it is what it is. Let's go down the list though. But this is interesting that the price is already down. But again, this is a farther out batch. So something to consider there. Next on the list. So this kind of seems to be the consensus with this thing. I think a lot of it is because ASIC Miner Value put up a listing fairly quickly. Like not too long after, they put up two variants. A lot of the manufacturers decided to jump on board, a 16.2 and 17.6. Neither of which are confirmed. The 17.6 is based off of that leak from like well over a year ago. That it listed at like 17.6 at like 33,200 something, which doesn't make sense because again, they gave us that efficiency ratio. So you can kind of guesstimate where it's going to be. The 16.2 is relatively close, so it may be somewhere in that range, but most likely, again, somewhere between 16 to 18 gigahash. The prices are all kind of in this range though, right? There's been about 4 or 5 stores all having these things up, all give or take in the same price range. But again, the official specs haven't been listed. The 17.6 is based off of a fake leak that people like to regurgitate for some reason. The 16.2 I think is because again, ASIC Miner Value did put that up there. Whether that one is official or they got some insight on there, maybe, but I think that's where these listings are coming from, right? Because as we go through all the other ones, they're all listing the same thing, and again, it's just because of that ASIC Miner Value listing, okay? But the price tends to be on this range, right? It's going to be probably in the teens, between 14 to 18, somewhere around there. Maybe the fake Bitmain price is like 11, 12K, which sells out instantly in 10 seconds, but the street price is closer to this range, okay? So time will tell. Should be finding out soon though, because this thing is supposed to supposedly start shipping next month, right? So should be finding out potentially in the next couple of days, okay? So an interesting price point is the freaking E9 Pros. They've gone up massively. I thought maybe it was just one listing. Maybe it's an error or something. Pretty much all the websites have it like above $4,000, $4,500, which is pretty interesting because the profitability hasn't gone up that massively. Kind of don't know what's going on there, right? I don't know if maybe they're starting to cut down production. Maybe that's what's going on. There's just not that many units. So the few units that are there, they're increasing the price. Maybe it's the last few batches before the E11 comes out. Who knows, right? But for whatever reason, they are pretty high. The Jazz miners have pretty much remained in that same range. Again, they don't really budge on their prices at all. Spot price is a little bit high. They do have pre-orders I've seen going into like June, July already. So as far as the new guy, the X44 or whatever the heck it was, it's probably not going to be until like an end of the year kind of thing. But just something to take note of here that is pretty interesting, because at this price point, hail to the no. But it's just interesting that it went up so high. This is one that has gone down quite a bit, right? And this one's getting to the point where it's almost starting to get enticing, which to many is going to sound stupid, because when you look at the profitability, it's like, bro, why would you care about something that's making $1.29? Because chances are the hash rate and difficulty is probably going to come to a halt. Okay, so because the profitability is so low, not going to be as popular or as enticing for people to jump in. So meaning prices may potentially start coming down or they stay stagnant. Just depends on the price action, right? Which KDA's price action has not been too great. And the freaking hash rate went through the roof because of that recent price action they had, which is one of those things we talked about, right? It's just that even though that daily profitability was going to be good because the price went up, right? So what happened? People want to mine the ASIC. Like, oh man, it's going to bring in 25, 30 bucks a day because of that price action. Bitmain released huge batches, which we can see now. Again, we were in like the 450 petahash range for quite a while. Nearly doubled, right? Went up to about 860. Ultimately, it is dipping down a little bit. And I think it's just because of the excitement. A lot of people with inefficient miners, like the K8 Lite, little KD boxes, all that, all plugged in. They're all starting to unplug now. Okay, so maybe hopefully this is kind of a local top. Just because now the profitability is not too hot. Do I think the hash rate is going to drop down a lot? Probably not, though, right? People who just, spent freaking 3, 4, 5K on this ASIC, they're going to plug that thing in. They're not going to get it just to look at it in that pretty little box. Okay, so again, the goal for any of these ASICs, for me at least, the bear market strategy has been break even or better, and I'm good with it. Reason I'm saying that this guy is kind of enticing is because, again, yield. I'm focusing on yield, which has gone down a lot, right? The best time, again, was getting in early and mining pretty much this whole year when we're getting about 20, 22 KDA a day. Now it's literally about half. Now it's about 10. But again, if your value proposition is that potentially in the bull market, let's value KDA at $4. Who knows if it goes higher? Who knows if it goes lower? But even if it goes down to or up to $4, yielding 10 KDA a day, and we're able to get a little bit of time with this, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, that's the equivalent of mining $40 worth a day. Okay, so that's kind of how I play it, how I look at it. I'm trying to look for the less popular ASICs that I think have good value. Okay, so depending on how bullish you are on KDA, like for me, for example, it's a project I follow, it's a project I'm into, it's a project that I think will do well. Where it will land, who knows, but it's one to me that has a lot of potential. So like risk to reward to me is pretty freaking good here. Okay, because again, this coin did make it up to 24, 25 bucks last bull market. Will it hit anywhere near there? Who knows? Even again, my price target, $5. $5, I'm extremely, extremely happy with that performance. Because again, mining during this whole time, we're doing 20 KDA a day. If it hits $5, it's like we were getting $100 a day for that entire time. Because again, I'm just mining and hodling. Okay, so hopefully it hits at least $5. Maybe it hits a little bit under. Maybe it only hits $4, or maybe we get half of previous all-time high. Maybe it goes up to $12. Maybe it does do extremely well. It does take off. It does have a new narrative. It goes up to $15. Who knows? But for me, risk to reward, the degen factor for me is still there, even at this range. Would I pay $3K for it right now with this yield? Probably not. But if it continues like this and it goes down to 2,500, I would consider getting another one, right? So we'll see where it goes. But again, those are the kinds of things I look for. But again, one big drawback is, again, this miner has been out for well over a year now. Okay, so typically I try to look for more latest and greatest. But if it doesn't seem like anything new is going to come on the horizon in the next like 3 to 4 months, then it's probably going to be a bargain still, because again, 6 months from now, these prices are all going to be completely different. Okay, so just something to note there. So something similar, well, we'll get it when we cover the K7 here in a little bit, but let's go next on the list are these Caspa ASICs, which have been going down actually, and it's because it's just not as popular now, right? A lot of the attention is going to go more towards these new ASICs, which is a good thing if you're an existing Caspa miner. And a lot of it also has to do with the Caspa price action, right? When everything else was going up, it was still kind of going sideways. Okay, so it's been kind of dissipating. Doesn't mean Caspa's doing bad or anything going on there. It's just that's where the hype is. Okay, so right now the hype is kind of shifting, which again, for me as a person who has a Caspa ASIC, I like this, right? Would I consider getting another one? Probably not. Again, to me, I've done the reviews on the other ones I talked about, like when this guy came, it's just too expensive for what it is still, but prices are creeping down. So it just kind of depends to what extent. Maybe it continues, maybe Caspa continues to stay sideways, maybe it goes down further for an extended period of time. Then I could be interested, but at these current price points, I'm not. But it is interesting to see the downtrend in the price, okay? Because we've already seen this guy go from 12.5, and then the next batch is already at 11.7, okay? Making it even more enticing than the Bitmain units, which we'll cover here in a second. But this is another big note, is that the KS3M is finally starting to drop. So currently an in-stock model is at 6,500, okay? So chances are this guy is going to go lower as well. The Bitmain units are also starting to go down. We can see it trickling down to under 30. It's at 28,900, which again, definitely out of my range. But we can see that the Ice River effect is starting to take effect. Okay, so Ice River is lowering because now it was starting to near the point where you can get almost 3 of the KS5Ls versus one of these guys. Okay, and these guys are obviously not selling so well because of that extreme price. And it's also limited batches. Certain things to think about. That's why, like, when this guy came out, a lot of people were saying, oh man, the hash rate is going to go through the roof and all this. Because of that price point, it's going to go up the same amount regardless. Whether people are buying one of these guys, 2 of the Ice Rivers, 3 of the KS3Ms, whatever, it's going to kind of go up in the same range, right? It's still to the point where what matters more here is just your overall hash rate. Your dollars per hash is way more important than the efficiency still. 6 to 12 months from now, going to be a different story, but for now, in the short term, which is where we're looking at price wise, it's not a big concern, because yes, this guy is massively more efficient, but again, it's dollars per terahash. For me, that's what I value with Caspa ASICs. So I can definitely see this continuing to go down to 27, down to 25, just depending on Caspa's price action. Now, if we get that freaking Binance listing, we get Rusty Cas, like a lot of things can cause it to go through the roof as well, right? So different things to factor, but at these price points, definitely still a no-go for me, right? And we can kind of see here that the hash rate has been not necessarily stagnant, but it's not at the extreme gains, right? So far this month, it's more of a 10% gain versus a 20-30% gain, right? If we go all the way back to the end of March is when it was starting to hit around the 200 petahash range, and even right now, almost a month later, it's in like the 210, 215 range, right? Which is still definitely increasing. But again, as the network matures, it takes a lot more just to even get a 10% increase, right? We'd have to go 20 petahash just for a single 10% increase from that 200 petahash range, right? So bullish stuff if you are already Caspa ASIC mining, something to consider there, right? So hopefully that trend continues. Hopefully all the focus goes to these new ASICs. People kind of start losing the interest here, because a lot of it's just going to depend on the price action with these guys also, right? If Ice River just decides to tear off the band-aid and this thing goes down to like 7,000-8,000, and then Bitmain decides to lower their KS5s down to the low 20s, then chances are people will get more enticed and the hash rate will start picking up again, right? But until they do that, I kind of see us kind of not going up as aggressively, okay? So we'll see what happens there. So on to the next one, and this is the K7. This is one I've been getting a lot of questions on. Done a lot of videos on this guy, a lot of content, just because it's one of those where profitability looks good. It's just the yield is so much lower. So far the price though has been holding up extremely well. That to me was a big thing. We kind of even mentioned it before, you know, it did hit that recent like nice little high. Not all-time high, but like a local high. So far it's been going down, but it's kind of holding up still in still an extremely profitable range. Now if it went back to where it was earlier in the year, it'd be a whole different story. But again, the main catalyst here is that the price has gone up so much, and right now with this dip, it's still looking pretty good, which is a bullish sign for this thing, right? That was kind of a big concern, that we knew the hash rate would go up immensely, and it's still going up, and it's still going to continue to go up. Okay, so people are still buying this thing like by the truckload, so it's still going to continue to go up. It's gone up extensively. Okay, we were in the 150, 160 range for quite a while. Towards the end of January, we're in that range. Currently, we hit a local peak of about 370, 380. Okay, so it's probably going to hit well over 400. We did have this nice dip, so this is going to be the inefficient hardware, just because, again, the price went down almost 50%. This is one of those that did get hit pretty hard with this downtrend. So because of that, those less efficient ASICs are unplugging, right? So with all the excitement, a lot of the CK5s, the CK6s were to the point, depending on your lecture rate, profitable. So a lot of those guys had replugged in, but because of this downtrend, it did bring them back into a good chunk negative. Okay, so that's most likely what that little retracement is. But again, as people get their K7 shipment in, it is going to continue to go up, likely exceeding 400 here pretty soon, right? But again, so far things are holding up well. Even with that extreme gain, it's looking pretty freaking good, right? It's just hard for me to recommend just because, again, the yield has dropped so much and it's so expensive, right? But again, if you're extremely bullish on CKB, which again, that BTC layer 2 narrative is paying off extremely well. That's a big part of the catalyst. That's why it's doing as well as it is, right? Because it's been a crazy run up. It's definitely the best gainer. CKB, for example, took over my portfolio. It's now my biggest holding, which is why I probably should have taken more profits. And you guys who caught that post, I did post up that I did take some profits. Realistically, though, I should have taken more just because, again, I am bullish on it. I think it'll do well, but do I think it's going to do well to the point where it's the biggest holding that I own? I got to be more realistic, right? So it is one that definitely, if we do see another pump, I will probably take more profits. If not, just kind of is what it is, right? So let's go to the next one. So we'll start getting to the BTC miners. So this is where my focus has kind of been, because I'm actually considering kind of getting one just depending on where things go, just because I am interested in these newer ASICs, but man, I think I'm going to get it priced out, right? The L9 is extremely enticing because that is one that I feel is a safer play, but when it's going to probably go for 12, 15, 16, 17,000, it's an extremely tough pill to swallow considering the price point on these guys, right? So we look at the micro BTs, the What's miners, they're not really budging. They are holding their value well. They haven't really gone down at all. The M60S is not impossible to get. It is a little bit more difficult to get, especially at a decent price. The prices haven't really budged a whole lot. So we'll see. This was kind of the one I was kind of hoping would dip a little bit, but again, it's not really budging at all. The 60S is, to me, the one that would be more enticing over the 60. It is what it is, right? The ones that have been dipping, though, are definitely the Bitmain units. Those have definitely been going down. We did see on the last update we had that these went down to 2,200. These did sell out, right? These aren't the only stores that had it this low. A lot of the other stores also had it that low. So we look at some of the other units. The K9 Pro is one we have been following. Hasn't dipped much. Dipped $20, right? Most of the movements have been about that. They've been like 20, 30, 40, $50. There hasn't been anything significant just because, again, a lot of vendors are also unsure what's going to happen after the halving. Okay, they don't want to like go too low. They don't want to go too high. It's kind of interesting that they're not really selling at this price point. So just depending on what happens at the halving, because at this point, again, it's tomorrow, right? A few months ago, it's like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. But at this point, it's tomorrow. We'll see where price action goes, right? And it's not even that day after. You're going to have to wait a little bit for the market to digest it, right? Wait a couple of weeks. Wait for just the price action, right? To see what the sentiment is. If anything else happens. Because again, when we have these huge events where there's so much interest, so many eyes on it, this is also the times where manipulators come in, the whales come in, because they know that. Okay, especially right now with this narrative, with so many people coming into the market who aren't necessarily too familiar with the Bitcoin and the halvings, right? Other people coming in because of the ETFs, people watching all these like little BlackRock videos and all these little videos talking about the halving, the scarcity. A lot of them are going to have the mindset that this is going to be like a flip of a switch. Like, oh yeah, we're going to go from this much to this much. And they think it's going to happen overnight, or they think it's going to happen in a week. They think it's going to happen in a month. Typically, sometimes it's like 6 to 9 months after. We don't know. Maybe it's sooner. Who knows? But chances are if that happens, maybe there is a sell-off after a month or two. Maybe something else happens and the prices go lower and there's another big sell-off. Maybe we go down. That's what I'm kind of looking for as far as if we get any deals here, right? So again, I'm more on the fence where like if it's a good enough price, I'll jump in, but it's not one that I'm like, I definitely want one. If I definitely wanted one, it was definitely 100% set on it, I would be jumping in now because again, there's a lot of risk with maybe the price start going up and it gets to the point where it's now unattainable, right? Because realistically, even if something bearish happens, it's hard to imagine these things going below $1,000. Okay, where I think there is more price potential to get cheaper prices is potentially with these guys. They have already gone down a good amount though. Will they go under 3K? Maybe, probably not. Who knows? But this is probably where my eye would be with S21. So it's currently at 35.49. I think it went down a whopping like $30 or something. Right? So we'll see where it goes, but it's definitely one where I'll keep my eye on. But so far, they haven't really budged. Again, there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. Things were looking really good a couple weeks ago, but the sentiment has definitely changed, and it's continuing to change. We just got to see how the market digests this halving. Okay. Next one are the new guys, the S21 Pros, the 234s, which I know this one pissed a lot of people off, right? Because a lot of people went with the S21. They paid that premium because, like, yes, I want the latest and greatest, the most efficient into the halving. So far, some of the vendors are saying that this could possibly start shipping in July. Okay, so kind of sooner than later. I was expecting more of a Q3, Q4 type deal. But July would be pretty quick, right? We're in April, so what, May, June, so like 3 months away potentially. Who knows? We don't really have exact dates, but as the time comes closer, we'll start getting a better idea. Okay, and they'll start doing like batches. Obviously, the sooner batches are going to be more expensive than the latter batches, so just stuff to consider. But value-wise, realistically, I would be looking at the S21. Yes, the S21 Pro is an upgrade in efficiency, but again, for the price difference and the fact that you're able to get one of those now versus later, something to consider there, right? Another one to watch is actually the T21, because as we saw, this guy, you can run it on single phase now, right? You would have to swap the PSU, put it on Lux OS. I'm not sure what the extent, like what the tunability is. If any of the other aftermarket firmwares are working on anything just to be able to use like other options, right? Like I don't know what the extent of being able to tune it's going to be, but it is potentially an option. They do have another variant now, right? It was only the 190s. There is a 186 now as well, but this guy is pretty handsomely priced, right? So not too bad, kind of enticing, but again, it was more appealing for that factor when the price disparity was a lot greater. Okay, between the S21 now and that guy, $700. So like, yes, there is a difference, but again, if your goal is to have this guy, potential resale value, what are people going to be searching for? The S21. The guys you want to like dump on, the normies, the new guys, they're going to be looking for the S21, not necessarily the T21. Okay, so that is kind of something to factor, something to think about if that's kind of your goal to sell it down the line, right? So overall, BTC ASICs haven't really budged much. We're gonna have to see how they digest this halving. As far as the altcoin ASICs, there has been a lot of variations. Okay, so it's definitely something we're gonna keep our eye on. And just the way the market reacts these next few weeks is gonna be a big indicator of what to expect these next few months potentially, right? For me personally, I am not a bear, but that would be my preference, that we do have a dump that continues, or we go down, or maybe we just stay in this range and go sideways for a while. If we want cheaper coins, cheaper hardware, that is kind of what we want. So I'm not saying I'm a bear, I'm not saying I want that, but for me, for my greed factor, and the fact that I want to stack more coins, stack more hardware, that would be the ideal situation that I'm looking for. Because if we go up and to the right, then it's going to be business as usual for me, right? So what I am looking for are like these dips, these buying opportunities for just coins, potentially hardware. We're going to have to wait and see, because maybe instead of, these crazy prices, maybe they start going down. Maybe these other ASICs that are getting overlooked, maybe those go down even further. Who knows, right? But I'll definitely do another update right at the end of the month. Probably like the last day of the month, I'll do another pricing update. We'll kind of cover the same miners just to kind of see what happened or look for variations. Again, typically with these videos, we focus on those variations just to kind of see, because that's giving us insight into the trend, right? Are we going up? Are we going down? Is it specific to that coin? Is it the whole market? Because again, as far as like us little pleb miners being able to afford these things, time is kind of running out. Okay, so just some things to keep in mind, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys buying anything? Are you guys holding out? What do you guys think is going to happen after halving? Do you think we're going to dump? Do you think we're going to go sideways? Or are we going to go back to 70, 75K and just kind of go sideways from there? Right? Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let me know what you guys are doing, what you guys are buying, what you guys are most interested in. Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.